people want. And Tim is the Director of Technology for Metromix. So we all work for Metromix. Metromix used to be a Tribune product. Last fall it was spun off as a joint venture between the Tribune company and Gannett. So we're more or less our own company right now. We do still work in the Tribune Tower. A year from now, who knows? So it's been like summer of 2006, or actually spring of 2006. So about 2 years ago, we were looking to update the Metromix application. Before it was this. It was a J2EE front end, a .NET back end. We had this legacy data model, which was like a 10-year-old data model from this story server application that we had. And it was just getting really difficult to maintain and to scale out to multiple markets. And they're basically changing the strategy of Metromix. It used to be Chicago only. They're looking to take it to a national brand, to hopefully get it in like the top 40 markets around the U.S. So that was the basic problem that we were faced with. We had a lot of different possible solutions. We were looking at Drupal, we looked at Django, we looked at some off-the-shelf type stuff from like Interwoven. We looked at redoing it in J2EE. We looked at Rails. We looked at a bunch of little other ones. We basically just went on the web and looked for every possible CMS that was out there and any type of solution that we could do, and we did proof of concepts and some prototypes. We really did a lot of investigation for about 2 or 3 months. We looked at different platforms. If anyone has any questions, by the way, feel free to interrupt. And also, we had at the same time we had a business team that was putting together an RFP, putting together requirements. And the initial requirements were 800 pages of requirements, done by committee. About 5 different committees or so, like the mobile committee and the search engine optimization committee and the search committee and all this other stuff. And it's just a gigantic stack of papers that were really difficult to read. And we decided to give that to IBM, Accenture, and Tata, and a few other big companies. And so basically they all came back and said it's going to take about 18 months or so to develop this application, and 40+ developers through, at the peak of the development, we probably had 40 people concurrently working on it, both onshore and offshore. And most of the people in-house just realized that probably wouldn't fly. That would take too long. We wanted to get this to market quickly, and it probably cost too much money to actually be reasonably feasible. So our CTO at the time, pulled 3 developers off of their projects and just kind of said, do this. Stop doing what you're working on it now and just work on the Skunkworks prototype. So no one knew what we were working on.
Was it full-time or part-time?
Full-time.
Okay.
Yep. So it was 3 of us, 3 of the most senior developers at the Tribune, myself and our software architect, as well as a new guy we had brought on who was really sharp. And so basically every day we just sat down and said, what do we want to build today? And for 20 days, in one work month, the 3 of us just kind of put this Ruby on Rails app together. And the reason we picked Ruby on Rails was during all our prototyping and all of our initial research, Rails was by far the most productive, and we really accomplished the most on that platform as opposed to anything else we had tried.
Had you guys had experience in Ruby and Rails before?
No, I'd never written one line of Ruby before this month started. So within a month, we created a full CMS, not full CMS, but a pretty good one. We did faceted and keyword search. We had our data model, which we use a single table inheritance model for all of our content. And that also includes these collections and relations, so it allowed us to group the stuff together on the site, as well as relate content to one another. We also did a Google Maps integration.
Did I hear you correctly? A single table?
Single table inheritance. All of our content, for the most part, exists in one table of content item. So a photo, an article, tons of different content item types. All that stuff, a venue, an event, all that stuff sits on one table. So we got a really cool model that allows us to just have one table for all our content. I can talk more about that that data structure later. But it's really, it makes developing a new content item type. So let's say our business people come, if they want a new content item type, like a poll or a quiz or something like that, you don't have to create a new table. We already have a table. It's a matter of us
Is it
trying to.
fairly wide table or what? How many fields?
20 fields maybe. Not very big.
Yeah.
But there's one special field. So anyway, yeah. So after this month was over, we brought it to senior management, and they you just saw jaws drop when they saw what we had accomplished in 1 month, and they said, when can we launch? And that was after just one. They thought it was ready to launch after 1 month of 3 guys working on an application to support all of Metromix. It wasn't quite ready to launch, obviously. It had a lot of features that were missing, and we maybe mocked up a lot of stuff, functionality that could have been built. So project actually said, okay, we're going to greenlight this project. We brought in ThoughtWorks to help us out with an agile development methodology. On the life of the project, there was about 8 to 12 developers at most, about 4 in-house developers, about 4 thought workers, and we had 4 people we brought in from a company called Cognizant, which is an India-based development shop, and they brought people on shore to help us out with that. We started the requirements gathering, so we took those 800 pages of requirements, just kind of burned through them and just kind of took out all the high-level pieces that we needed to do. We began coding this in January of '07, and we launched New York and LA 7 months later in July. So, like I said before, the initial estimates from all the big shops was 18 months, 40 plus developers. The budget was just ridiculous, and we were able to do this with, a quarter of the resources in a third of the time. So.
And did you pare the requirements down, or did you maintain the existing 800-page requirements definition?
We pared it down a lot. We distilled it down more or less into a lot of the big functions. We just kind of broke it down. Like, okay, we want search, we want the mapping features, the facet search, and all that kind of stuff. We just kind of broke it down into the major components that we need to build. And we're still building features that were part of the original 800 pages, but they wanted all 800 pages for us to launch with, and we said, you don't need all that to launch. You don't have it now. We can give you everything you have now and then some, and then work towards the rest of that over the next few years. So that's what we're doing now. So some of the challenges that we faced. We were all J2EE before this. Like I said, I had never written a line of Ruby in my life before that month. So that was an interesting paradigm shift. Metaprogramming was something that I just love, and that's really how that whole single table inheritance thing works. Is so I'll talk about that data structure right now. It's basically one table called content item. In there we have a data field, which is a text field. And we basically serialize a hash map into that field, just YAML, and then we have a method creator, and so basically content item has a method on it called data attributes, and we can just define all data attributes for an article. We have like a headline, a byline, a tagline, that kind of stuff. We just, when you define your class, you just do data attributes, those 3 things. It'll create getters and setters for all those, puts them into a hash. If you need to have a special class, you just pass it in as an array instead of a string. And so the first is the name of the field, the second is the data type. And it knows how to serialize and deserialize all that stuff. There were a few issues with that, like you can't have when you do YAML, if the first character is a new line, it doesn't like that. So all of our strings are actually base 64 encoded.